And welcome to the show, Joe Arrigo, and you are a personality consultant.
Yes,
so
that's very accurate.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm fascinated with. I bore the living daylights out of my wife with personality talk because I'm an analyst. I love analyzing people, and I love doing it with a framework that has kind of been figured out already.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a personal fan, if you will, of the Myers-Briggs type indicator system, and more specifically, I personally like 16personalities.com.
Mm-hmm.
And before we started the show, you mentioned that it's probably one of your least favorite maybe resources, and so and I'll let you just go ahead and tell how you incorporate your expertise and personality, and how you help business people.
Perfect. And I will get to my criticisms of 16personalities.com, but I do small group workshops, and then I do personal counseling sessions. I find that smaller groups are easier to work with than a large enterprise, because when you're trying to get that message across about how we can actually apply personality, the bigger the group, the more disengaged people get. So most recently I did a workshop for 501c3, and there's 11 people. It was great. And what I do that's different than what I would say 16 personalities might do is I give them more than just the meme of their type. I don't just read it to them. I say well, your type needs to work on this, and here's our 30, 60, 90-day plan.
Right.
Given you have to do these things because, say, for example, you're really bad, like I am, at living in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we need to work on living in the moment. Literally, when you go outside, stop and smell the roses.
Yep.
Because you could just be in your head, miss all the nature. So we can apply that in a way that's more than just, here's what the meme on 16 Personality says, and then, that's all you get.
Yeah. And so for anybody who's really doesn't know anything about personality analysis, there's a lot of online resources that kind of help you understand yourself, and they're all actually really useful if you take the time to slow down and either think about it or accept it, but also not let it determine who you are. I think that's something to be careful with for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that's helped me tremendously in my personal development journey.
Yes. And what I will say is that anybody that's on the path of, self-actualization or learning about themselves, I'm not going to say don't start there, but that's just the 10,000 foot view. I like to take it down to the 1 foot view, where you're really in the weeds about you personally.
Mm-hmm.
So start 16 personalities, and then dig into understanding your cognitive functions, and then kind of go to the PhD level where I'm at, which is understanding the John Beebe model, which breaks it down very far. So
interesting.
I will never say don't look at 16 personalities, or don't take DISC, or don't do the strengths finders or EQI or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say don't try to get better.
Right.
Ever.
And then kind before we dig in and really start teaching people about how some of these systems work, maybe we should kind of preface it with the fact that some of these systems that have been developed are kind of backed by neuroscience, and then some are not. They're backed by behavioral studies, which to me personally, I'm well, behavior is important too. It's kind of the end result. So you can't, because some people will say, oh, you can't use this one or that one because it's not backed by neuroscience. And you're like, okay, well, it's backed by their behavior.
Yeah.
So, I think there's legitimacy in both, obviously. And, something like the Big Five is backed by neuroscience.
Yeah. And one of the things in all my presentations, I literally start out with the objective, and the objection that I handle right away. I say, MBTI is not astrology, it's not pseudoscience, because one of my favorite authors, Dario Nardi, he's a PhD at UCLA. He no longer does that, but he's a consultant now. He wrote a book called The Neuroscience of Personality, where he, with his students at UCLA, over a long period of time, figured out that you can look at specific types like the ISTJ and the INTP and give them the same task. Look at this piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain will light up on different parts based on that same task. So what he did with that data is he said, cognitively, and the chemistry in your brain reacts differently by type to the same exact stimuli. proving that you actually
are different,
and
your behavior shows it.
Yeah. So it's like they would play chess, and the INTJ, thinking very far in the future, loved it, but the ESFP hated it. And different parts of their brain like didn't even show up where it showed up on the INTJ versus ESFP. So
it kind of shows like, look, we're just at least measured the fact that you're wired up differently.
Yes.
Yeah. And so maybe let's do this. Let's give a brief overview of something like the MBTI, which is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. This has been developed over like the past century, essentially. And how recent is the Big Five?
Big Five, I think, is just the 50s, 1950.
Okay.
I believe it's not that old. I mean, it's
more recent.
It's more recent, you would say. But
so basically, in a nutshell, the MBTI is when you take this personality test and you get let's just call it you test into a type.
Sure.
I don't want to say you're assigned one because I don't want it to create your identity, but you kind of test a certain way, and then your results give you a 4-letter indicator. And so let's just break that one down really quick. So like, for example, I'm an INTP, you're an INTJ, and Charlie is an ISTP.
Right.
And there's 13 other possible
15
what are the
16 personalities.
Yeah, so 16 minus us 3.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, 13 more. And then so basically the first letter is indicating
introversion, extroversion.
Extroversion, which I think some people might not.
I would like to jump in
understand.
here because this is one of the things where when I'm presenting, I say I'm going to dispel some stereotypes about specifically I versus E, and then also T versus F, because that's where there's unfortunate, like I like to say memes, because they just get out there and then people just are stuck with that. But
why don't can you break down the 4 spectrums first?
Sure, easy. Yeah. So the first spectrum is introversion versus extroversion, I versus E. When we think about that, we just say, where do we recharge our battery? By being by ourselves or being around others. Let's just keep it simple.
Right.
So extroverts aren't just loud people. There's some introverted, extroverted types. So let's not think they're just loud. And then N versus S, intuition versus sensation, is just where we get data from, how we draw in data. So it'd be 5 senses as a sensor, just what's in front of us as it exists now. Or intuitive types, it's, I see the data, obviously, but what intuitive leaps can I make? What's the bigger picture? Or how do the pieces fit together?
Right.
And then T versus F is thinking versus feeling. This is another one I want to talk about, because feeling types aren't necessarily emotional. They don't cry more than T's or anything like that. So they just make decisions based off how it impacts people.
Right.
T types make decisions based off the data.
Right. They
stay true to the data while the F types stay true to people and the impact it has. And then J versus P is another one that really needs to be talked about because it was added later Carl Jung never talked about J versus P.
Interesting.
Catherine and Isabel Myers, the mother-daughter pair, they added it.
Got it.
Later. So this was an addition. Judgers, they like timelines. They like tasks. They like having just enough information to make a decision and then moving on.
Right.
P's, always gathering data. They're never wanting to have some arbitrary deadline, because what happens when you have arbitrary deadlines is you rush into something and it's half-baked. It's not good. So P versus J is a very big project delivery issue. We need to get done by Q3. Well, but Q3 we're going to not get the best result. And then J's get upset because it's not unfinished task, and then they just have some issues there.
It's like order.
It's order.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we need that balance. The term I am trying to get out into the zeitgeist is type diversity. Like, we need cognitive diversity on teams.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't need like a bunch of INTJs or ESTJs, because you'll go 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction and you have blinders on. I
mean, I don't even know if it's legal, but I wish it was legal to hire people based on their personality. I'm not even kidding. Like, it seems logical to me, but
I'm 100% advocate of that. It is. I've dealt with HR formerly as a recruiter. There's a ton of things you cannot hire on. And one thing that it does make me sad, because you would be able to get the right person that would, their
be
brain
a
would
natural strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of being like, well, we need a certain group here because we have some sort of, I don't know, HR goal we're trying to meet.
Right.
We're not serving the business or our colleagues good by just going, we have to have a certain number of people here based on our, whatever the government says or whatever.
Right. Whatever metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is very popular in pre-employment, but you can't directly point to that as a way for discriminating against somebody.
Right.
Right. But
I think about it the opposite. I'm not discriminating against anybody. I'm advocating for somebody.
yeah, see? I like the spin.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like that's really the way I look at it. I'm like, I want the person who's a natural talent in this role. Like, because the way I see the world is we all have strengths. Like, and it's kind of your duty to know what that is and to put it out in the world to make it a better place.
That's more brilliant than I could have. I'm stealing that pitch now.
Well, there you go. That's your new pitch.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think a lot of people sometimes see their type and then think, oh, it explains why I'm so weird or I'm bad. Or like, I think it's good because your natural abilities are a strength that most people don't have. So we just need to embrace that, harness it, and then put you on the right career path or you need to be the leader instead of the follower or vice versa or something like that. I mean, that is how you have applied MBTI. That's what I do. Because anybody can read.
Right.
But how do you apply it? You have to like study it and then come up with a plan for people.
Well, you at least have to study it to the point where you understand, for example, what do they call it? You got like, so you have your type indicator, which is your 4-letter acronym that is what you study to learn yourself better. Now, the actual mechanisms that really describe who you are called cognitive functions. And there's a way to, and we'll probably stay out of the weeds on it, but basically there's a way that your 4 letters interact with each other in a certain way to where you have a primary driver of whatever it is and a secondary driver. And maybe could you just briefly explain like how that works, like how you really barely use your 3rd and 4th?
Yeah, I can concisely do this. So Jung basically believed that you had 4 functions, NSTF, intuition, sensation, thinking, feeling, but they were attached to an attitude, which meant the attitude is it introverted or extroverted? So we can look at someone who's an N type and go, but which direction? Are they introverted in their intuition or are they extroverted? And then the cognitive functions come out of that where they're the order that you use it. So the dominant process could be, for you, it'd be introverted thinking.
Check.
So if that is your number one thing, you wake up in the morning and introverted thinking is you have a framework by which the day should go. And then when you get into your business, there's a framework how I operate. But some people may have introverted thinking in their 7th slot because there's 8 cognitive functions we all use all the time. So basically it's an order that your brain processes information, and everyone has a unique order. And the slot that it's in, 1 through 8, is highly important and different than everyone else.
Right, because it's your approach to understanding the world, right? So if your primary driver, like mine, is introverted thinking, that's kind of like an analysis machine. But some people have, like if you're an extroverted thinker, that's like an effectiveness machine, right? Like what works.
That would be like the ESTJ or the ENTJ would lead with what we call extroverted thinking, or as Cody mentioned, effectiveness. It's really good to classify these things into archetypes instead of trying to think, what does introverted thinking mean? You just go, oh, it's logic, or it's they call it accuracy. So you lead with accuracy while someone else might lead with effectiveness.
Right.
So when you can start to classify the way that your brain works, then you can say, okay, well, my top 2 functions, which we call your dominant and auxiliary, or your hero and your parent, once you define that for people, they now go, okay, now I'm free to double down on those talents. And then when we look at your inferior and your auxiliary, which you're not so good at, we can realize, we need to work a little bit more on this. But
right.
when people can't define it, it's hard to work on it.
They're mental processes that you still use. They're just less developed than your primaries. And when you can understand that, like how to like tap into, well, you called it a parent. Some people call it pilot, co-pilot.
The car model.
Secondary, whatever.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a
great model.
It's like when you tap into your co-pilot, you're like a superhero because you're you're serving your own primary function in the best possible way.
Yes, and that's why I like the car model a lot,
Yeah.
because the personality hacker, they just, in their book and their podcast, they talk about that. So it's your dominant function is your pilot, and then you have a co-pilot as your auxiliary, and then you have your tertiary, which is the 10-year-old,
Right.
and then the inferior is actually the 3-year-old.
Right.
I think it might be different, but basically what you don't want to do is let your, did I get it wrong? I think
you got it. I mean, in the right order though.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you don't want to do is you don't want the pilot to give control to the 3-year-old driving a car, and just because it's so underdeveloped as a personality type. So that I really appreciate that. And there is something interesting about how you develop over time. 0 to 30 is where you pretty much just use your top 2 functions, your dominant and your auxiliary. 30 to 50 is where you start to recognize that there's other traits that I have that I should tap into. So that's like where you develop maybe your 3rd and 4th, and then as you go into late 50 plus, you develop like maybe your 6th, 7th, and 8th.
I would like to just call that the wisdom stack right there.
Maybe. You're coming up with so much good marketing material that I don't know, I'll have to pay you or something like that. But that's really good, because you just, when you're young, you don't even realize that you don't use 6 other functions. And then later in life, you realize I should probably start caring more about people to get some of my goals accomplished.
Yeah. Okay, so now just to come back out of the weeds a little bit and to give the listeners something practical that they can go do. So like what could they do? Where should they go in your opinion to just go take a test? It might take them 10, 15 minutes. And how should they interpret it and internalize it?
So I would you can do 16personalities.com. If you do want to do that, take the results to somebody that knows you intimately well, a spouse, a friend, a colleague, because they'll objectively say you're not an ENFJ. You don't. This is so not you. It's the whole like paradox. You can't.
Right. So take the test, get your result, have them read the description, and have them objectively third party say, yes, this is pretty accurate.
This is you. You can't evaluate yourself.
Right.
So
it's biased.
It's so biased. So then ask someone, am I actually intuitive feeler? And then they might say no. Or if you are correct, then there's a bunch of resources, YouTube channels that I say, go here now. Look at the dark side of the ENFJ by my guy Love Who. He's a great channel. And then I also will say, read Type Talk at work or Type Talk in general. There's 2 different books, because then it digs a little bit deeper. How are you going to operate at work? How are you going to operate? What are the tasks we can do every day to get better? So it needs to be actionable.
Right.
It can't just be like, what Hogwarts school am I?
Right.
And then it's like, well, that's great and funny, and everyone like thinks it's cool, but then what am I supposed to do with it?
Right. Okay, so basically take the test, get your result, have somebody that's really close to you verify, and then if they say like, yes, this is pretty accurate, now what?
Well, I would say, are you in the right career? Evaluate like, okay, am I somewhere that is using my cognitive functions or my top ability to its maximum, or maybe I need to switch.
Or even just consider. Maybe you don't need to leave the company you're working for or the business you're doing. You don't have to change but maybe there's some tasks that you could delegate to somebody else on your team that will fit them a lot better. And then maybe they're actually gonna be way better at it than you.
Yeah, that's probably what's gonna happen. Realize that, look at if you have a spouse or someone that's close to you, get their type too, because then you can realize, oh, here's my communication problem. It's because I have this and they're this. So they're not unintelligent or they're not purposely trying to sabotage you. They just literally process information differently, and now I can make things more harmonious.
Right.
Using like these, instead of saying, here's an example. An ESTJ or an ISTJ, what they'll always say to you, no matter what, is what you should do is this. Because their whole thing is what's worked before, how do you do it? They're not purposely trying to tell you, but it comes across as like, well, I guess you should just be my boss then. They're not trying to do that, but when you realize that's what they are, you can have more sympathy and you won't be upset because that's just how they are.
Right. And actually deploying empathy in this whole process is like freaking, it's the magic bullet.
Yeah.
Because if you actually, between studying this and actually practicing the empathetic process of imagining you're that person with that wiring, like it takes a long time to get to that point, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
but it's like you can see the world in X-ray vision. Like that's the way I've found it to be, you know?
It does become a superpower. One thing I did want to also say, what you shouldn't do once you figure out your type is to use it as an excuse. Hey, I'm an ENTJ, so that's just the way I am. That's just who I am. That is what some people do, is like, oh, I finally have an excuse to be the way I am. Now, I don't want to hear that. Type development is something that I work on. Let's get better at some of your weaknesses, become dynamic.
Right.
Instead of being just that person that everyone has a hard time dealing with.
Right. And okay, so now that there's that, so I would like to also just talk briefly about like the big five.
Okay.
I don't know if I can even remember.
I do not remember. I know that I cannot remember.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe let's not, because I don't even have my phone to Google it.
Okay.
But what I was gonna attempt to do is, so by the way, if you want to take the Big Five test, go take the Big Five test, and it's less complicated. It's probably more approachable for people, and it's probably easier to understand at first. But essentially, it's going to give you like 5 different metrics, and each of those 5 metrics is a spectrum, meaning like you test a percentage on the spectrum. So like openness is one. So you're either high or low in all of these. So openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness. There's a couple other ones which.
Well, the point here's why that's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna tie it in and say it is all kind of related.
It is related, and I would recommend doing all of the personality assessments, because you may get more out of Big Five or the 5-factor model than MBTI. You may find that DISC profile works better for you.
Right.
Like I said at the beginning, never going to tell someone not to go down that journey, but take them all and then see which one actually connects with you. Enneagram is hot right now. I don't quite get it, but I know that people are doing workshops on it, and a lot of team dynamics come out from.
Did you find that?
Yeah, so the big 5 are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism.
Right.
Gotcha, yeah.
And so somebody like one of my favorite people in the world, Jordan Peterson,
right,
is he references the big 5, what would you call them? Traits, a lot in his work and in his speeches, and it's so, and he's like a world class,
oh sure,
you know what I'm saying, person. And so I guess all I'm saying is you tap into this, you kind of internalize this knowledge, and you learn it. It makes listening to experts a lot more rich, but well, that's kind of me though. Like I like to know everything.
Same with, INTJ. We're pretty much on the same page there. It's we need to know, because you're always about like getting deeper into classification and categorizing things.
Yeah, but it's a trap.
But we can look at some of the greatest INTPs and be like, oh, that's something to strive for. I think I posted on LinkedIn a while back, like the top 10 richest people in the world, and the 2 guys from Google were there. And I think you commented saying, I got a little ways to go. So it's you can look up to the people like that. One thing that I like in MBTI too is if you've ever gotten glasses or contacts, you put that on and you have so much more clarity. Because when I got glasses, I was like, what was I doing
without them?
Without these, how did I even live my life? So when people,
it's a really good analogy,
get an MBTI profile done by me and I go really deep into their stack, they're like, that is so me. I never had it articulated to me till now.
Right.
And now the world is just, I can't ever go back.
So, by the way, let's hook some people up right now. So, first of all, look up Joe Arrigo. How do you spell it? Arrigo?
Yep.
So Joe Arrigo on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Connect with him, and then you I guess if you have any resources for them, even if you are still in development.
No, I just put together a very long presentation that goes through it's basically MBTI 100 through PhD level. So it's probably, I may need to break it down because it's not very digestible for the first time.
Right.
What I do in my presentations is I give all the books that kind of got me on the journey to where I am now, and then all the YouTube resources. I have my own YouTube channel, Joe Recruiter, one word. The reason Recruiter's in there because I used to be a recruiter, but for SEO purposes, you don't ever change your YouTube. So, but yeah, I'm on this journey with people, and when I counsel people, you get better. So I'm always getting better as I counsel other people.
Best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah.
Yep.
But also those who can't.
Right.
So if you're a teacher, that means you didn't make it. I don't know. That's just.
I did the concept of it's the concept of regurgitating the information in a presentable way.
Right. I know that. I was just being stupid.
Yeah. It's cool. Sometimes I have to check.
Yeah. No, I know. Sometimes my wife's like, you know that your humor is deadpan.
Yeah.
So it's like, are you being sarcastic, or because people? That's my worst function is harmonizing with people. So sometimes a joke I think is hilarious doesn't hit at all, and it offends everyone. And I'm like, I thought it would be funny, so I need to work on that.
I think.
Are you having recognition within yourself too?
No,
you kind of had that look like.
No, I was thinking about my relationship with my wife and how she's actually an ESFJ.
Oh, that's lovely.
And so our cognitive functions are actually the same, but in just reverse order.
So that's great, because that means that you are her shadow type and vice versa.
Yeah.
So your worst qualities are her best, and then her
exactly. But that leaves us with huge blind spots. I'll just say potentially.
Okay.
We do great. We're a great team. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, in theory, if we have the same cognitive functions just in a different order, that means by default we have a couple of big blind spots.
It could, and when I bring this up, I say, here's what could happen. You could have this yin-yang type synergy because you balance each other out, or you could have huge issues where how does this person even function in the day? Because I don't even know how they get through life.
It's something like that, but it's painted in a much more positive way. So the way I like to say it is it gives us a natural, like as close as we are, it gives us a natural healthy distance where like we're so different that we have the same values, first of all. So that's first of all, that's the glue. But besides that, we operate so differently that it gives us natural space. And as long as we can stay in good enough communication to know where each other's at, it's kind of this nice thing where it's like, you don't feel like you have to tell me how to be, and I don't feel like I have to tell you how to be, because you're just your own independent. Like, we don't overlap. It's weird.
Right.
Our cognitive functions are the same in a different order, but ultimately, like you said, it's yin and yang.
Yeah, it is.
We don't step on each other's toes.
So
is probably the best
when
way
I
to
hear
say
that, I go, well, ESFJ, the kind of meme of that is hosts and hostesses of the world. They're the best at, if you were planning a party, I would not put you in charge. I'd put your wife, because she would know how to cater to people. Can I get your coat? Are you hungry? Can I get you a drink? INTJ, INTP would be like, get your own drink. Like, you're an independent person. They wouldn't.
Oh, I don't want to offend you.
I know.
Right? I'm like, you'll get it if you want it.
Yeah, that's how we think about it. But that's why, like you said, you want to put people that are naturally inclined to act away in the position to naturally do that. Yeah. So that's a good dynamic you have there. I feel like if it was doing counseling, I would have been like, hey, ESFJ needs to be.
Because I think your wife Angie is also an ESFJ. Or do you have to do it?
I have to just hit the camera real quick. I'll be right back.
But that type, well, it's easier to explain it like this. ESFJ top function is extroverted feeling. That's harmony. Right. So harmonizers are great at what is the right thing to say at any time. How do we dress when we go to this occasion? How do we present ourselves? What has society told us is the way to be? If you want to be politically correct, if you want to just do exactly what society says, it creates unity. So when you have that person as a confidant or spouse, they're going to be well liked. Right. There's no way that they're not going to engage that in everything they do. Right. So as a wife, mother, something like that, ESFJ is great.
Yeah, I think so. But I was just going to ask, like, I know because I think Angie is also an ESFJ.
That sounds about right. She's a little bit more introverted than extroverted. Right. But that sounds about right.
Well, let's see if it fits. What does she do?
What do you mean? What does she do?
So how she raises the kids.
Yeah, she's
okay. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Right. If she was like, oh, I'm in HR, I'd be like, that's also perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's where that you naturally want to go, because you're helping a group of people and everyone needs to be united under a message or a corporation or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. She's a great mom. And,
Okay.
As coming from my personality, like, it's been interesting trying to figure out, because I'm a problem solver, and it's like, oh, hey, you should do it this way. And she's like, why are you attacking me? And I'm like, I'm not, and so that's always been,
you're like, it just works that way.
Right.
Like,
right. And she's like, but you're saying I'm stupid. I'm like, no.
Yeah. So maybe, to for the people who are listening that are more practical people, and you're like, I'm boring you right now. Let me word it like this. Charlie and I have, everything we do, we try to optimize based on who fits the bill best, right? So I'm a creative guy. I'm the dude designing websites. I'm the dude responsible for photography and videography and all of that. And Charlie, because he has an S in his stack, which means he's a sensor. He's really good at seeing, collecting like the actual hard data of things. He's really good at systems, and so he builds all of the connections between all of the systems that we have and pay for, and he's the whole back end mechanic of our business. And I'm just more of the big picture guy,
right?
But we know that, and we make sure that we're not wasting our time when the other person's going to do it twice as fast.
You guys have an interesting dynamic for working together, because you both have introverted thinking as your top function. So you both live within frameworks, but Charlie has extroverted sensing as his second, and you're extroverted intuition. So you're exploring new possibilities, creativity. What could we do here? Always like, but then following up with, we got to fit in the framework. It can't be outside. He is touching extroverted sensing. So he can, I would just bet that, like, those exploded car part, like, where you see like it blowing up. I bet that's how your brain imagines, like you can see it going together in a way.
That's exactly.
Yeah, that's what introverted thinking is.
What was the way that you said it right before we started the show?
So the way I said it right before the show is like, if we're in a room, Cody's like, here's all the data. I wonder what's over there. And I'm like, here's all of the data. Like, how do we act in the room?
Yeah, it's slight, but it's different. It's way different. See, the extroverted sensing makes you want to touch it,
right,
and be like in it, and you can explore it as more pondering.
Yeah, like what's the possibilities here?
And he says, well, here's what it is, because I've broken it and shown you what it is. So that's a great dynamic for this business and being in the studio.
Now, with the workshops that you do, do you get a lot of aha moments, or is it hard for people to grasp some of this in a short time frame? Or do you ever do repeating workshops where you come back maybe for like a series?
Not yet. It's been pitched where it's like you have to give them some time to implement it.
Yeah.
Before you reach back out and say, how's everything going? Have you done anything? Like, have you used the cheat sheets that I give you?
Right.
Because I always say, put it on your desk. Like, you want these cheat sheets right next to you so that you can look at, oh, this person's emailing me, they're an ESTJ, so they're going to want a response like this. So I can't go right away. I got to give them some time. So not yet, but that is a part of what I want to do.
Right.
You made a good point, because I brought this up yesterday talking to my wife. The aha moments are great, because you're talking to an INFP and you say, I bet that you're really good at aligning the mission statement of the company and keeping everyone on track as the company grows. And she was just like, her eyes lit up. Like, it's great to get that connection where you actually say something that's locked in with how they feel. So the aha moments come up when you're describing the type. But I always preface, I literally have on my slides, like, we're taking a deep breath here, because it's going to get a lot worse. It's going to be harder to understand to go through 100 level to PhD level in one time, especially if you only know. But people that are on the path will explore it themselves, and I give them the resources to do it. How I did it, how I got to where I was. You can, like, here, it's yours now.
Right.
Certain types aren't likely to, they think they figured it out.
Right.
Which is ironic, because those are the ones I want to talk to the most. They're
right.
Like, no, this guy, now personality, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of the danger that most people probably get trapped in sometimes is like thinking that this is a thing that describes you when it's really meant just for you to help understand yourself, you know? And I think I just want to reiterate that. And
Good.
You know, nobody gets to tell you who you are. You are the captain of your life, and you get to decide how much work you want to put into yourself and how much work you want to put into learning other people. And I'm just here I was stoked to, when I quote unquote met you on LinkedIn, I was like, I don't even care. I just want you on the show.
Nice.
Just because I want somebody that's probably, well, definitely more nuanced than me in this type of stuff. Like I'm just an enthusiast.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
That's what it started for me.
Yeah. But it's just practical for me.
It's practical. It's not just workplace. You can do counseling. Like, hey, we have some issues with communication. You can do it with pretty much, it's applied everywhere. So there's no one that, in my view, my pitch is just that there's never a bad time to start getting better. And I think most people want to improve some part of their life. Even if you're the top executive at a company, there's always room for improvement. And that's kind of the INTJ motto, is we can always get marginally better all the time.
I like that.
All the time.
Yeah.
So like I've taken up, I do a lot of video and audio editing, but I hate it because it's so sensory. But it's good for me and I need to do it, and I schedule time to do it.
Right.
Because sensory activities are boring to me because I like to think to 20 years in the future.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
You have to do the tactile stuff.
Yeah. So like to explain to you, Charlie, it feels like, yeah, I see it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But like, because you've explained to me before, you're like, like if I were the worst thing I could do to Charlie's be like, hey, come up with a big long plan.
It's like, no, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Just come
I
up
don't
with
know all the variables. What are you
come
doing
up with the
for me?
business plan for the next 20 years and just like write it out for me. Like that gives you anxiety.
Yeah,
I'm sure it does.
It's not even that. It's like, I don't even know where to begin. So
It's
I'm
just
not gonna do
blank.
that. It's
Just
like,
Yeah. It's
that's
just like,
useless.
yeah. Yeah.
Just a resignation letter.
Yeah. But if I need to fix my car, I'm also calling him.
Right.
You know.
See, that's why there is a spot and everyone can thrive in whatever type they are.
Yeah, even if it's not business, even if it's just life, it's just, I think having another way to understand people, well, let's look at it this way. Let's say you're not naturally good with empathy.
Okay.
All right. And you don't have a tool like some sort of personality system to deploy to help you better understand other people. All right. Well, if you're bad at empathy already and you don't have any tools to at least help you understand things or people, you're kind of navigating life blindly because in my opinion, your connectedness to the world and who you're connected to is like basically the definition of what you're able to do in life. Right.
Absolutely.
And so if you can't manage those relationships and those people, you're kind of useless.
Yeah, you're kind of useless. No, that is true. And that is, unfortunately, I think the paradox is that unfortunately the types that need it the most are the most apt to reject personality kind of out of hand. So that's like my pitch is I need to get these ENTJs, ESTJs to understand that harmony isn't their greatest strength. But imagine if you just got a little bit better, you would have like a big following. People would love you. Just do a little bit every day. Now, ESFJ wouldn't need it. And ENFJ wouldn't need it. That's harmony's their number one.
Right.
Or what did you called it? What did you call it? Connectedness.
Yeah. So like your network and your connectedness to the world. So So my co-pilot function is exploration. And so where I find most success in life is making sure I spend time exploring new relationships with people, because it's kind of a double whammy. I'm functioning, let's just say I'm firing on all cylinders. Yeah. So I'm making good decisions and good judgments. And not only that, but it's bringing new people into my life that add value. Right. And it sounds, my wife would say something, well, that just sounds selfish the way you're saying it. And I'm like, it's just it's useful. It's good for them too.
Yeah.
You know,
it can be a win-win. It's not like
I just say things a lot, and she's like, it just sounds like it sounds selfish. It could come off that way. And you're like, okay, I should keep that in mind.
Right. How are you communicating it? And it's like, I'm not saying that I'm growing my network to just use everybody.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you reaching out to me wanting to be on the show is a win-win for us. I don't think there's total selflessness on any of our parts,
Right.
which would be kind of naive to believe that, like, he's having me on the show. He spent all this time and he drove up to Auburn just to hang out on a Saturday.
Yeah, of
There's
course not.
obviously going to be some give and take there. So that's not evil or
Right.
overly something that is nefarious.
Yeah, it's interesting too when we so like my wife, she's an ESFJ, and so she's not an analyst.
No.
So she doesn't really care about getting deep into any of this, but let's just say she was well versed, just like I am, I will just consider myself well versed. When she has a problem, I'm sitting there and she's expressing the problem to me, and then this happened and that happened, and I'm just like, I'm reading you like a book right now, and so when you're done, and I'm like, okay, so take your deep breath, and now I'm gonna explain to you why you fell into that trap. Right.
Okay. Using your framework of
because it's like, because you're this is not a negative thing, but because you're a people pleaser,
right.
Let's put it this way: we all operate with assumptions,
right,
to start with. This is kind of a Jordan Peterson thing. He says the word presupposition a lot, and for her, it's the assumption that she can trust anybody.
Right.
Right. And so with that key, it's like an assumption or a key. Okay, I can trust anybody. So then what happens is it allows me to be a people pleaser or a servant or a caterer, because I kind of am taking the gamble that you're not going to stomp on my heart for it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then I realized, oh, wait a minute, that means I probably have a key or an assumption that my whole framework operates on. And I thought, what might that be? And I think the other day or night I determined it was something like I assume that it's sort of the opposite. I don't assume that I can trust anybody. I have to assume that you're missing something, and I have to assume that you need somebody else to fill in the gaps for you.
Okay, and you're the person they're coming to.
Yeah, and I wish I had a better word for it, but
no, I get it.
I always assume that somebody's missing something.
Okay, and
but
that you're gonna figure out what that puzzle piece is, and then give them. Okay,
maybe it's not like I think I'm gonna be the hero or anything like
right.
that. It's just more like I assume that everybody's incomplete.
Yeah, and I would say that's a good assumption to start with everyone.
It's just I can't see the world any other way.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, but I would say it's very bold of you to know that that's how. I feel like maybe I have the same problem that she does in a different manner. That's big.
I wonder if it's the J.
It depends on if you
well, no, for her
in,
it's the harmony. She just, because she's so good at harmony.
Right.
You can only be good at harmony if there's trust.
Yeah.
Like blind, faithful trust. So that's why when somebody, does something that's doesn't, let's say they disrespect her, and let's put it this way, because of that assumptions that we have, those are our weak spots, where when somebody steps on that particular part of us, it hurts the most. Right?
Yeah.
So if they break that covenant of trust with her, it's just like devastating.
Yeah.
Right? But with me, maybe it's more of I assume that I assume that I'm doing my best here.
Oh, I see.
So if you disrespect me by like making it sound like I'm not trying, like you're gonna be on my shit list.
Yeah, that's true. And for like an INTJ like myself, my 3-year-old or my child is an introverted feeling, which is the way I value myself, or it's my internal
Wait,
value.
he's talking about himself, by the way, not his actual 3-year-old.
Oh,
He's talking about a cognitive
Sorry,
function.
yeah. I sometimes I just see I assume people are like,
Right.
I've done all the studying I have. Introverted feeling is your values. It's how you view yourself. It's your own compass. So when people have that in their third slot or their child function, imagine it being used like a 3-year-old would. So when people think that they undervalue my intelligence because I value that highly as an INTJ,
Right.
I get super upset.
Right.
Because it's like, you're like, I'm so competent. You're basically saying that I'm incompetent because I didn't know a fact, and my goal is to know all facts.
Charlie and I had a discussion like this maybe a week or two ago about, we were talking about what intimidates us. It was a little bit of a vulnerable conversation, but
Cool.
we're super close, so
Yeah.
we don't care. We'll talk about anything. But
What was it?
I remember what yours was. I think yours was something like,
being in a position where somebody, like I respect somebody and they're an expert in a field that I claim to be an expert in.
Okay. So like they're going to call you out?
Right.
Okay.
it's like imposter syndrome in a way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But I think the way you explained it, from what I remember, was when somebody's done something.
Right. The experience level.
Yeah.
So it's like if I have knowledge, but they have the experience, like I get super nervous about my knowledge.
Okay. Because theirs is applied and yours is academic?
Right.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
Even though he's confident in the academics
Right.
portion of it.
It's like if you asked me to apply it, I would absolutely apply what I know, but I'm not going to speak in front of the person who's actually been doing it for 20 years because I assume that there's something I'm missing.
Yeah, you just want to be like, well, what? You should just come up and talk about it.
Right.
So so that sounds, because your introvert intuition would be your child slot. So I'm wondering if you have these, you catastrophize a situation that will never actually happen.
Yes.
Okay. So like, they're going to ask me this question. I swear I'm going to look so stupid, and then it doesn't play out like that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's how I would see it happening.
I forget what mine was. Do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Being too smart. God, that's the worst. I don't know.
Yeah, something I remember coming. It was like something that I dug up. That I was like, yeah, that's intimidating to me. I think it was. By the way, most of us are intimidated by things that are completely irrational to be intimidated by.
Sure. Always.
But it's good to know, because sometimes we act out of fear not knowing it.
Mm-hmm. We don't realize, a lot of times we say the external world is imposing something on us, causing us to feel this way. What I would say is it's actually just a very unconscious function that's bubbling up, and you don't know how to handle it because you're so underdeveloped in it. So a lot of people, to protect their ego, will just say, that's someone else is making me feel this way, thus I don't have to deal with that because it's being imposed on me. So
I think my thing is truth. So in honesty.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my I think that's my key that I operate under, is that I'm assuming you're giving me accurate information.
That's funny.
Like, maybe not. I'm assuming that you at least value accurate information.
Okay.
Not that you're telling, because I know that people are not always truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't assume that. It's more that I assume you know the value of honesty here.
Right.
Right. So like if somebody, like, let's say somebody doesn't pay you, you know, and you're like, that kind of throws you through a loop.
Yeah.
Because you're like, did not everything not go right?
Yeah. What's going on here?
Or yeah. And so it kind of is like this like chasm in your world, because you're like, well, shit, now I got to go deal with this and figure out why. And it's a new problem. And it's like, oh man.
And you're probably not a naturally confrontational type, so it's really stressful to ask someone for money and then get in their face about it if that's the scenario.
I'm probably less than 50% agreeable, but which makes me more able to handle confrontation. I'm fine when I'm in it.
Okay.
It's just there's a little bit of like, oh, damn it, now I got to go do this.
Yeah,
you know?
I get that. Okay.
But once I'm in it, I'm fine. Whereas I feel like some people totally break down in confrontation. Like they're shaking the whole time. Like even if it's a phone call.
Yeah.
You know.
Just get on the phone is the worst
like,
thing for people.
I mean, I've seen people in interactions where they're nervous the whole time. And you're like, I just feel bad.
That's me. Like I hate confrontation too. Well, but actually it depends. If I'm really comfortable with you, and we're in a relationship where I can trust you,
Mm-hmm.
I'll fight over anything.
Good.
You know, but if it's something, if there's a bunch of unknowns in there where it's like, I don't know you, I don't know why you're not doing this,
Mm-hmm.
I hate the confrontation.
Right, because you feel lost because you don't have things to sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have the real-time data.
Yeah.
And
That's,
yeah.
ISTPs in general, one of the videos I did on my channel was that the reason that they like isolated work is because their communication is like non-verbal. It's like they're like construction workers, but ISTP. So a lot of their communication is like, yep. Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, that's
Yeah.
Charlie for
Yep.
sure.
It's like, I don't need to explain anything more than just this exact thing I'm doing. And I heard you. I'm confirming I heard you. Yep. Go. Got it.
Yep.
And that's for some people, like, I need validation that you've say, yes, person, I will do this at this and this time. But for you, it's, I don't need it to speak any more than
Right.
just a grunt.
Right. It's one of the things that I've learned, you know, especially like, you know, over the years of marriage is like, okay, let me confirm with my wife that I'm understanding you correctly. And it's like,
Good.
you know, she needs like, that's valuable to her. And it's not intuitive for me, but it's really helped us because it's like, okay, hey, just confirming this is what we're doing instead of, yep. And she's like, do you care? It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I need to actually confirm that I am paying attention and not just like, sure, hun, whatever you say, you know.
Auto response.
You can't just turn it into a hammer.
No.
Like, or some sort of hand tool.
Right.
I think all of us have the auto response in
Mm.
our, I think all men do.
Yes.
You have like a bucket of auto responses you give. Yeah, no, I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah, I heard you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. No, sounds good. Yep.
It's functional.
It is. And then I always get all right, so I'm going to just repeat myself so I can tell she asked me to repeat it back.
Right.
Make sure that
That's
It's
funny.
super valuable.
I'll always, even with Charlie, it doesn't matter who, to be honest. I usually don't listen the first time. So as a podcast host, it's like this is like, what are they called? Navy SEAL boot camp or whatever.
Okay.
Because for listening skills for me, I usually have to ask people to repeat themselves.
Okay.
Meaning somebody will say something and I'll probably appear to be listening to them. And I'm not. I'm on a different planet.
You're thinking about you're exploring the next possible 5 questions like you could ask me.
I'm hardly seeing what's in front of my face. But I heard some wah 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 wah, and I'm like, can you say that one more time, please?
Just refresh me on what you just said.
I don't even tell people anymore. I don't even say I didn't understand because that's not true. It's not. I don't tell them I didn't hear you because I heard you. I heard wah wah wah.
Yeah.
So I literally just say, can you say that again?
Right.
And then they totally willingly do. Like it's not a problem at all. Other than it takes more energy out of the world. You know what I'm saying? So
what's really funny, and I actually discovered this from a YouTube comment, is that thinking types have blank stares when they're taking information. So if you could be explaining like the craziest situation or something interesting, and it's just the same.
Yeah.
But it's just all just the way that they take in information is just blank. Feeling types will like give eye movements and they'll look concerned.
Language.
So like it's just funny when you know someone's that they're not blankly staring at you because they may not be listening, or they could just be thinking of the next question or their own response. But the blank stare is not a negative trait.
There's been times when I'm talking to Charlie and he's staring at me and I feel like I want to stop talking and be like, did I say something to offend you?
Looking right through you.
But like I know at this point it's just Charlie being a sponge.
Right.
You know.
That's what you want. That's good quality. I don't know.
No, it was good. I think I enjoyed this discussion, and maybe like what we've already kind of discussed. Like, okay, you could go take the test, take it to somebody you know. What are some other, maybe one or two other things? Doesn't really matter. I'm not like tallying up, but something that somebody could do, just to make this conversation, how to apply it, maybe. I mean, besides
like pitching myself.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, first of all, like I already said, hit up Joe on LinkedIn.
Right.
And Joe Arrigo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And just message him.
Right.
Yeah.
And you will. A great tool that I use now is Calendly. Do you use it?
I use a similar tool
Okay.
called Appointlet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I find that extremely effective because what I would say for people that are like, oh, this guy has something to say, it's pretty interesting. I think I might want I think they call it like a clarity call or like a discovery call. Book me for 15 minutes. We'll talk about we'll get you typed. We'll figure out what you're about. I can type people myself because I just listen to how they speak and then I say, oh, your first function is probably this. Thus, you probably are down to 2 types instantly. And then let's discover like career path. Let's discover what's going on in your personal life. Let's discover these things. And then what I do is I book retainers because 60 minutes is not enough time.
Sure.
So I book like in 5-hour increments.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that really compared to like career coaches or business consultants, I'm very fair pricing because some people are just very predatory.
Right. So 5-hour, but that's not to say it's going to be a 5-hour session. It's going to be 5 1-hour sessions. Yeah.
What I do is I say first call is we come up with a plan that we implement during the next week, and then we come back and say, did you try those things? Did they work? Did you check off the boxes I told you? If not, let's reevaluate. If so, and let's go to the next step because there are like basic, intermediate, and advanced steps for developing certain cognitive functions. Like extroverted sensing, the first thing that I mentioned was smelling the roses.
Mm-hmm.
That could be very hard for an INTJ, but there's advanced tactics that go even further than that where it's like doing more than just that. It's like doing some sort of do something that you've never done, like kayaking, because that's kinesthetic and it's outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, you should reach out to Joe because something that him and I share is that we both need to stop and smell the roses, and that's super important to us. It's important to our stress level, our happiness. It's sometimes things that are good for us we don't know that we're neglecting from ourselves. And personally, even I think it was as recent as last night, I kind of had a bit of clarity around the fact that I need to take it day by day. I'll stress myself out, projecting myself into the future.
Pre-stress, nice.
It's like, yeah. And I think what I came up with was like just live in the moment, you know. And so when you came into this podcast at the beginning and you said, oh, I need to live in the moment more, I'm like, okay, you and me both, my friend.
That's really tough for types that are always thinking about exploring or envisioning the future. They can get caught in that deadly cycle of never paying attention to the present. Yeah. Which is the opposite with types that are always in the present. They're never thinking like, how does this action gonna affect me tomorrow? Yeah. So
because for us it'll drag on into the night. Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything unless you can put plan into action and do it. So I would reach out to me because we'll do a call, we'll figure it out. What's great about having your own business is I don't sell anybody. Right. My whole goal, because I've been in sales forever, I've been an SDR, I've done the 200 outbound calls a day. My goal, create the best content for free that they're just like, I have to pay you to do it. Right. So in my mind, if I'm not creating the absolute best, I'm not getting paid, I need to do better.
Yeah. And I don't know. Let's let this episode go over a little bit. We've done an hour so far, but I think we could add like another 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Look, but I could even preface the episode and be like, hey, look, if you're into like, really deep nerdy talk, this is the one for you.
Heck yeah.
But, if you can't handle it, that's fine. There's going to be another episode for you.
Good.
But I figure, while I got you here, you've mentioned we've all done previous things. I think, like I'm in my late 20s. I'm assuming you're roughly
30.
Okay. Yeah. So, I guess my point in that is to say that we've been on a journey, and so we've done other things that are probably less suited to ourselves. And like you mentioned, you've even done had those jobs where you make 200 sales calls a day, and it's like, how did that hurt you or build you or both?
I would say it's more of a building thing. The dealing with rejection is really tough for people, but I am not the first person that wants to get on the phone as a introvert. Yeah. So I just fell into that, and then it helped me develop the parts of my personality that others were really good at, and I think it's helped me to get to where I am now. But I would not say it hurt me at all.
Right.
Just helped me
I guess
envision.
I was thinking more of like the actual pain in the moment type of hurt, not the long-term damage type of hurt, but the actual like how much did that suck for you?
It sucked a lot because you guys can both probably feel me on this. Is like, I didn't agree with the framework that the things were existing in. Like, why do I have this arbitrary number? Like, me and metrics don't go well together, because it's like, I'm all about end result. I don't need like, you got to make this many calls a day, and then you got this many meetings a day, and you got to send this many emails. Cause like, that didn't fit.
Right.
So with my business now, and I'm sure your business, like, you probably don't have like arbitrary metrics or
right.
something that's.
We have some to keep us on track.
Good.
Yeah,
Like,
it's more along the lines of, based on general data, we need to at least hit this in order to see any kind of results.
I see.
yeah.
But
So
it's
like,
not like we need to just hit this number no matter what. It's like, well, if we want to see this result, this is generally where we need to be aiming.
Because what happens is, say you had a number like 20, let's say like 10 a month. Well, are they quality, or you just got to get 10 to hit 10?
Right.
Do you just want anyone to come in here to talk so that we can do the show, or do you?
Right.
So that's where the numbers in corporate America didn't align with my goals.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've had roles. I mean, I've done everything from pulling wire through attics to working at engineering firms, you know, to I photographed weddings. You know what I'm saying? Like, variety is my middle name.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? But that's just because of who I am. I've just been able to tolerate the variety, you know? And I think I agree. Like, everything you do really does build you up, and even if it sucks in the moment. And I guess I think I'd like to point out that do hard things, do things that you suck at. Don't avoid, you know, just because it doesn't align with your personality type, that doesn't mean don't do it. But it sure does make things a lot more clear and a lot more easier to navigate life. Yeah.
Makes you more approachable. I just go for the word like dynamism or dynamic.
And you can, okay, so I'm assuming you help people write resumes possibly.
Yes.
Okay.
And I use some MBTI in there for interviewing.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up, and I'd like to talk about that for a second, is when I considered who I really was, and let's put it this way. After I knew myself better, I could write my resume better.
Nice. Okay. Great.
And not only write it better, but like exponentially better, right? Because now you get to use all of those power words. Or even if it's not a resume, even if it's just like you're pitching yourself to somebody, either way, it's the same thing. One's on paper, one's maybe not. There's all of these fantastic adjectives that you can use to describe yourself that you never would have thought of had you not known yourself good enough, right? Because words, like these
words mean things.
The words mean things, and when they get bigger and fancier, they get more specific.
Yeah.
Right. But the richer, if you can describe yourself in a richer way, it really helps. It helps people understand you more. And you don't have to get into like you don't put your type on your resume or anything like that, but you use the words that describe you, but like to the utmost level.
Right. And on the same note, because I came from recruiting and I help people with their resumes, I still do. One of the things I offer is like interview prep, because one thing that has to do with type and blind spot is that you don't know how you come across to people. So a lot of people, the classic example I give is, a lot of people think that laughing and joking during an interview is a sign of like, oh, like we're getting along, this is going so well. A lot of times they're just, the joke you made they're just laughing kind of nervously.
Yeah.
And it's
Some
like,
people nervous laugh.
And it's just like, I don't know. I've had 5 interviews, and every time everyone's laughing and getting along, and I don't know, there must be something else. Like, I think if you were to realize that
you're making them uncomfortable.
You're making them uncomfortable, and that would probably be you have extroverted feeling down your stack, and you're not recognizing you're not being harmonious, then we can cater to that. But if you don't know that, then you'll never be able to address the problem in your interview. You come across a certain way to people, and we can identify that.
I think there's something powerful too when somebody's learning you for the first time. Maybe they're interviewing you. and let's just say you say something like, one of my biggest strengths is that I really know myself. I think has some leverage, because
that's huge.
Yeah, because then they go, oh really? And you're like, yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable. I know who I am and I'm comfortable with it. And it's actually a really huge strength for me, because I know when to ask for help and when to not. And it's really efficient, because if, I can do all X, Y, and Z all by myself and knock it out of the park, but I'm not going to waste time. I'm not going to waste the time that you're paying me spinning my wheels. I'm just going to go get the appropriate resource. Right. And I think, and then scribbling notes, they're just like scribbling notes, and you're like, that hit well.
That's good. One thing that MBTI does is it gives you the freedom to not be someone else. So we always hear things like, well, you can be anything you want. And I would say maybe, but you're naturally inclined to be this. Like you can't just be everything. So let's
we're going to get canceled for this.
we might. But what I'm saying is it's better for your brain, if you believe in science, that you should focus on a couple tasks or career paths or pursuits that are actually aligned, rather than saying like, I'll just be a basketball player. It's like, is that the best use of your brain?
I would be a terrible nurse.
Okay, me too.
But I might be a decent, not medical, but I might be a decent doctor.
Okay, right.
Yeah, because I just nerd out.
But it's effective if you're helping someone to go like, now it's like a relief. Oh, I don't have to be all those things. Now I can define my life, go this way, and there's actually freedom there and having less choices. Less choices gives you more freedom.
I guess the reason why I said that is that, like, you might think, somebody might think, well, my parents want me to be a nurse, or they've always wanted me to be a doctor. And first of all, that's a huge burden. Yeah. To have your parents tell you what they want you to be. Right. That's miserable. Right. So I guess I'm just tying it into what you said about the freedom from being something. Yeah, like having too many options can be stressful as well. Like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go in life. And I think your personality is set by 16. That's kind of what all the literature says. Like by 16, you're developed enough. Your personality is set, but then you can develop it the rest of your life. Right. So like I take someone who's like going into college or before college and say, based on typing you correctly, these are the pursuits I think is going to scratch your brain the most, and it's going to put you in your flow state. Go there. Have you, this is a little bit of a tangent. Heck yeah. A little bit of a pivot. Hit me. Yeah. Have you heard, or do you know who Helen Fisher is? No, but keep going. It might come to me. I think she wrote a book or something titled The Anatomy of Love. I think that's what it is. Either way. All right. What really impressed me with her work was that I learned that she found out how to basically determine your political affiliation based on your brain scan. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And so the way she explained it in this YouTube video I watched was there's two spectrums that she's primarily concerned with, which is the testosterone, estrogen spectrum. Gotcha. Right. And then the opposite spectrum is dopamine and serotonin spectrum. Okay. And basically they can measure that, right? We can measure that now. And so the particular blend of that will, with, I think she said 80% roughly 80% accuracy, determine your political affiliation. And like, she's like, I'll be able to tell you if you're a libertarian, conservative, liberal, something like that. But how would she apply it? It's more detailed. So is it just like, you, based on this, should vote this way? No. Okay. No. I'm just wondering what she was proving her point. She was proving the point of what we know about neuroscience. Great. That's perfect. Right. So she was just using it as an example to show, like, this is real. The results speak for themselves, because with an 80% accuracy, I can even determine your political, like, this isn't like, we're not just like measuring something and being like, oh yeah, see, we can do it. It's right. Like, no, like, here's proof. That's great. You know, and I guess it just ties into
It does tie in MBTI.
Right, and I was actually going to use like big 5 because like typically I think it's like higher testosterone, you slide way down on the agreeableness.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah.
I think it's something like that.
That would make most sense just hearing you say it.
But like it's all a spectrum, right? So
it is.
There's no hard lines. It's just they will word it like this. We tend to find that people with like extremely high testosterone levels are, or I'll say relatively high.
Relatively high.
Have
lower agreeableness.
Are relatively low in agreeableness.
I think that's great. And as we learn more about the brain, there's going to be so much of this where it's like, I can't imagine the ads and marketing that come out of understanding MBTI and things like this, but you can basically if you want to do a temperament, so the NT types tend to be more independent thinkers. So they're like, left, right spectrum. I don't really, they're just like, what's the issue? And then the effectiveness of accomplishing it.
Like I don't believe in political parties at all.
Okay. Which would make sense. And because maybe the framework's broken, so you don't.
I'm willing to talk about issue by issue, but don't tell me like
your truth is not my truth.
Well, just to group all of these individual issues that all have nuanced solutions,
right?
And to like package them all into like a Republican or Democratic part. I'm like, first of all, each party's own stances on issues don't play well together. Like they're hypocritical.
Yeah, totally.
Like they work against each other and they don't make any sense. So by default, I'm like, this whole thing is like a scam.
It's a scam. Yeah. Do you feel the same way? Is that how your mind works?
Issue by issue, but like rank ordered issues.
Yeah. So he'll prioritize them.
Right.
And be like,
TI.
Yeah. And then he'll be like, well,
and then practical solution, which affiliation is going to hit most of my priority issues.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's,
so I'm just mad at the system.
Right. Cause it's like, again, it's a broken framework.
Yeah.
For TI users like you guys, it doesn't fit.
He's just more real about it. He's like, well, in reality, you have one choice or the other. So
it's like, cause he does reality and you do not reality sometimes.
Right. I want to fix it.
Right.
I want to be like, hey, why don't we have 2 presidents, one from each party, and they have to agree when they sign something.
That's actually smart. Nice.
That's actually a thing this year.
They just pulled the plug on it because they couldn't get on the tickets, but they're aiming for 2024. So
for 2 presidents?
Basically, president and vice president
from different parties,
from different political affiliations, not necessarily parties. And then they agree, like part of their contract is they agree to rule jointly unless the decision has to be made in it's like a national security decision that has to be made in like 30 seconds. And then the one who ran as president would make that decision.
I love this. See, this is outside the box thinking that only, I want to know the person that came up with this. Is this?
It was Brett
Weinstein.
Brett Weinstein, yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And
why not? Try it.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. So
we'll ask Brett Weinstein.
Yeah.
There's a whole story. Look, there's a lot of people in the world right now who are brilliant and have great ideas, and we're having a lot of problems in the world right now with freedom of thought.
Right. Yeah. So before this show gets canceled, I'm glad that you had me on.
It won't. But yeah, me too, man.
This is fun. And I love the studio, love what you're doing. I want to refer some people that I think you would get a lot of value out of meeting and would have a very good, very different approach to business and totally different sector of business than what I do. Yeah.
And you know what? This show is to present stories and knowledge. Okay. So I didn't really have you. You didn't tell me a story. You just delivered knowledge.
Okay.
And actually, most of our episodes so far have been story based, which is great. But I'm looking forward to more episodes with somebody just delivering the goods, hardcore.
Yeah. There is a huge movement right now on LinkedIn and social media about tell your story. Everything's about everyone wants to hear your story. I don't necessarily think that's the way I don't think people need to hear how I grew up, how I came here, because it's just not moving forward. It's not effective.
Maybe.
But some people really like, I want to hear every single step along the way to make you a unique person, and that's what I'm buying.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to embrace that more. It's like telling my story.
I think part of it is that, one of the things, there's so many people doing the same thing as so many other people, because we live in a very connected world where we're connected to 330 million Americans. Like it's just what it is. So I feel like the tell your story movement is more along the lines of, okay, great, you do web design, but who are you and why should I do business with you?
Because a lot of people do web design.
Right.
So it's like, so you're right. They're buying your story rather than your expertise in web design in a way.
Right. Because it's like there's a million people who do web design and do it excellently.
Yeah.
So why should I choose you? It's like, well, maybe we get along really well, or maybe I'm a really trustworthy person, and I'm just going to take care of you.
Right.
Sometimes this is one interesting thing, and I have not unpacked it yet. But I've found that most of my customers and all of my best customers have all been women in the past few years.
Think mine have too.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it is. Let's put it this way. It has to do more with where we all have blind spots and strengths.
Love it.
And so who am I? Like, if I put myself in a customer's position, who am I going to hire? Well, I'm going to hire the person who has all the capabilities that I feel like I don't have. Right. And I think I don't like, my personal opinion is that, even though everybody is on a spectrum when it comes to,
No, I mean,
like men and women have tendencies in general.
Yeah, and that's proven through MBTI as well. Like there's specific literature on more females are F types.
Yeah, actually, by the way, 16 personalities, you can actually go on and look at worldwide data actually has been measured. So people who have taken the test, and it'll do it by country, it'll do it by male, female by country.
Right.
And it'll give you the percentages of the people that have that personality type, whether they're male or female, or in what country, or worldwide. It'll give you those metrics. Like, there's millions and millions of data points.
Right.
The data is there.
It is there.
Okay, I'm not saying anything anything controversial.
You're not.
Here.
No, it's proven, and personality type should be the one niche where it's like we can get outside of any politics.
I would hope.
Yeah, I would hope too, but it's like, that's your personality. Embrace it. It's not bad to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
I do think that the way our culture's set up, though, like, for example, an INFP male would be very rare and would maybe find it hard to...
Well, same with like an INTJ female.
Yes, INTJ, very rare. And their journeys through like a corporate structure would be difficult because they're outside of the structure we've built. So for INTJ females, they tend to do their own thing. I got to start my own business because I can't thrive in this environment.
Yeah.
So there are sex differences in type, but we can still embrace it and not get all weird about it.
Check.
Right. Just like Ruth Bader Ginsburg just died.
Right.
And she wrote a decision back in 96, I think, a couple years after she was appointed to the Supreme Court, where she was like, we can accept the tendencies or the generalizations of male and female, but we also have to allow for the freedom of the differences of individuals. So it's like, even though most men or most INTJs happen to be men, that doesn't mean that we can make rules where it says only men can do INTJ jobs.
Right. Exactly. And I'm on board with that. That's great.
Exactly. It's like, we can, just because we're recognizing trends doesn't mean that we're saying, okay, because of the trend,
we're doing away with the nuance.
Away with the nuance. It's like, that's, and some people do that, and that's unfortunate, but some people do the opposite of like, oh, we can't recognize the trend because then it will do away with it. No, it's like, no.
Yeah, that's a terrible way to go about it.
Both of them are
too
really
dogmatic.
Good. Yeah.
Too dogmatic.
Right.
That's why, like, I still do agree with one of your original statements that we should, like, wouldn't it be positive to at least understand someone's brain function before we hire them?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just thinking, and this is me asking a rhetorical question.
Okay.
I'm not actually looking for an answer at this second, but I do think about this all the time. Is how might I write my employment ad, or what do you call it, a job description?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How would you write it in a way that you can't get sued, but also allows the answers to reveal their personality
That
type?
is what so one of the services I would provide to a corporation would be like, how do you ask the question that would give you someone that's got introverted sensitivity or top function? You could ask the question and you can write the ad.
Right. So
without being discriminatory.
That if you get anything out of this whole episode and you're a business owner, hit up Joe just for that, because that's something that I've been thinking about, like how do you find that right person? It's the golden question.
It would probably be better to ask it in person.
Sure.
So you can
I'm
say
fine
like,
with
what
that
do you
too.
like? How do you organize your day? And if it comes in a very extroverted thinking manner, you're like, that's the person that knows how to like instantly organize everything.
Mm-hmm.
We want that. But if we want someone like, if you were hosting a party, what would be your first thing you'd think about? And then you could see if they actually have extroverted feeling thoughts about, well, make sure that they would have an instant plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just take that into the boardroom and say, well, we want this type of person, but we can't discriminate. So we're going to ask the right questions to get the person based on what cognitive function we need.
You know, what's funny is just speaking to people's strengths again, like so we've been doing it for an hour now, but like my wife, for example, she's a great caterer. But to be a great caterer, you have to be a great planner, because you have to have all the things to cater with.
Right.
And the timelines have to work out. So there's all these data points. And it's funny because she's not an analyst and I am. Analysis is different than taking tabs on things. So the way I think about how her brain works is like I hand her a stack of, let's say, punch cards.
Okay.
And they all have like maybe a certain pattern of punches down the margin in a certain like whatever.
Yeah.
And she is a master processor of like going through that stack and getting out all of the papers with all the exact same punches that line up. Like all the data points that the job calls for.
Right.
And
that's perfect.
She synthesizes that information instantly. It's incredible. And I think that's a little bit different than analysis, which is like accounting for variables and being okay with the fact that there's still variables.
Well, what she was using was introverted sensing. She's done it before. She knows how to do it, and she will never make the same mistake again.
Just wicked fast.
It's just fast. It's like it's a database. I pull from the database how this needs to go, and then I do it.
Like,
yep. And for me or you, it might be like
it's like running it through a machine, like a Scantron. It's
like an old Scantron. Oh man, that was cool. That's what it is in their brain.
Right. And it's super impressive to me, because I'm like, this would take me a month, because I'd be looking for more data.
You would just outsource it if you were smart.
Oh, I do.
You wouldn't try to do it yourself.
I outsource it to her.
Yeah, exactly. So you're smart. You're like, I know this isn't this isn't my niche.
Anyway, and I'm only speaking about people I know. Now, there's a bunch of unique individuals out there. We're all, I think, precisely unique. Meaning,
of course you would.
Yeah, you might meet another INTJ, but trust me, you're unique from that person.
Oh yeah.
It's not to say you're all the same. It's just you operate very similarly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, man, be you, do you, find the strengths, find your strengths and put them out in the world and make it a better place. Yeah. I think that's the moral of the story here.
Yep.
You give me so many good things to take away for my business. So I appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely, man. Ready for a fist bump?
Yeah. Let's do it.
A team fist bump?
Nah, just like, one here, one there.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yep. My pleasure.